Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, Prachi, you're audible.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I am Prachi Politega, your host and moderator for the session. Welcome back to the second session of the first day of the three-day international conference. Before we begin, there are some basic announcements to be made. I would like to request all of you to kindly mute yourself in order to have an ordered and uninterrupted session. This will help us for a seamless progression. The Zoom meeting room is closed now, but we are currently live on YouTube. So all those of you who were not able to connect with us in Zoom, kindly interact us through the YouTube link provided earlier. The chat box on Zoom is currently inactive, but it is open on YouTube. It will be activated on Zoom during the question and answer segment of the session. The queries can be posted there so that it can be taken up with the resource person. Thank you for your patient hearing. Honorable Principal and Patron, Dr. Sister Jyoti. Honorable Vice Principal, Sister Shobha. Honorable Resource Person for the session, Mrs. Shabnam Samuel, International Motivational Speaker, Author, CEO, Panchgani Writers Retreat, Maryland, Washington, D.C., USA. Conveners of the online interdisciplinary international conference, Dr. Rashmi Mala Sahu and Dr. Afrinul Haq Khan. CP Coordinator, Dr. Debjani Roy. Members of the organizing team, faculty members of various colleges and universities, research scholars, students, and my dear colleagues. Good evening once again. On behalf of the organizing team, I extend a warm welcome to the second session of the three-day UGC-CP sponsored online interdisciplinary international conference on COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on human society, divergent voices and perspectives. The COVID-19 pandemic outbreak has let loose the pandemonium, and the whole world is still reeling from it. We are witnessing a paradigm shift from the normal to a new normal. The pandemic has not spared anyone, from developing countries to developed ones. In order to discuss the actions and reactions to this global impact, we have with us Mrs. Shabnam Samuel, an international motivational speaker. With the august presence of our principal and patron, Dr. Sister Jyoti, and our esteemed resource person, Mrs. Shabnam Samuel, may I now request Dr. Rashmi Mala Sahu, convener and head of Department of Political Science, to kindly introduce our resource person for the session. Rashmi ma'am.
Good evening, everyone, and a very good morning to our esteemed resource person, Shabnam Samuel from Maryland, Washington, D.C., USA. Honorable Principal and Patron of our three-day UGC-CP-sponsored online interdisciplinary international conference, Dr. Sister Jyoti, Honorable Vice Principal, Sister Shobha, Honorable esteemed resource person, Shabnam Samuel, International Motivational Speaker, CP and NAAC Coordinator, Dr. Debjani Roy, Head of the Department, Geography, CP and IQAC member, Dr. Shirupa Roy, Head of the Department, Chemistry, our warm host, Mrs. Prachi Politega, Assistant Professor, Department of English, all faculty members of Nirmala College, members of the organizing committee, distinguished academicians, dignitaries, research scholars, and participants across the group present here today. I, Dr. Rashmi Mala Sahu, convener and head of the Department Political Science, on behalf of the principal, IQAC and CP members, members of the organizing committee and faculty members, deem it a great honor and privilege to welcome our honorable resource person, Shabnam Samuel, international motivational speaker and author from Maryland, Washington, D.C., USA, to the second session of the first day of our UGC-CP-sponsored International Conference on COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on human society, Divergent Voices and Perspectives, hosted by the Department of Political Science and English. Before I formally hand over the chair to our esteemed resource person, I would like to express my sincere thanks and gratitude to our honorable and dynamic principal, Dr. Sister Jyoti, for her endless support, motivation, and cooperation in organizing this international conference. COVID-19 pandemic came as a bolt from the blue and jolted us out of our regular schedule and comfort zone. Challenges deemed insurmountable with the switch over to the digital platform with an inadequate knowledge of ICT tools, and proper training. But your impactful leadership, sister, has made all the difference and made us realize that the most valuable resource that all our teachers have is each other. Our collaborative efforts can yield rich dividends in our professional growth and development. Together, we at Nirmala College have been scripting success stories day in and day out. And together, we can overcome all hurdles and challenges in our journey ahead towards success and excellence. Thank you, sister, for being a pillar of strength in all our academic endeavors. Now, let me introduce our esteemed resource person for today's session, Shabnam Samuel. She is a renowned international motivational speaker, writer, author, and CEO, Panchgani Writers Retreat, which is an international writing retreat based out of Panchgani in India. The retreat incorporates mindful living along with creativity and wellness, following the Ayurveda principles with yoga, meditation, and writing workshops. She is an accomplished writer and author, sharing forums with many celebrities, including Shobha. Her essays have been published online in Brain, Child Magazine, and Your Tango. Shabnam Samuel also hosts a TV show, Dewdrops and Words, that is broadcasted through global television networking based at Washington, D.C., which has more than 6 million viewers. She is also a digital marketing and social media trainer. Her best-selling book, A Fractured Life, which is a memoir, is indeed a poignant and powerful memoir revolving around issues of dislocation, disruption, despair, and adversity, and focuses on silencing of girlhood and womanhood and how, with time, love, and support, one can come out of that silence and find one's own identity and space in the world. She is indeed an inspiration to those who are determined to rise above the most challenging of circumstances and forge new lives for themselves. I believe Shabnam Samuel has more tales to share. So over to Shabnam Samuel to continue her narrations and share her experiences. May I request Shabnam Samuel to chair the session. Over to you, Shabnam.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, Dr. Rashmi Sahu. I'm not sure I'm quite that deserving, but thank you. So I want to start by saying that I'm absolutely delighted to be here at Nirmala College. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the principal, Dr. Sister Jyoti, for inviting me to be part of this 3-day program sponsored by the UGC CPE. It is also great to note that the departments of political science and English, my two favorite subjects in college, are hosting this wonderful international conference. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of you who've done this and arranged this. It's such a beautiful platform. So I was reading about your college on the internet. You know, I'd heard of Nirmala College, but I'd never given it any in-depth thought or read about it. So I went to the net and I was reading, and I was drawn to the primary purpose of your establishment, of your institution. It says, of providing Catholic young women of this area the opportunity of higher learning offered in a spirit and atmosphere of Christian simplicity, sincerity, concern, and faith. The college also welcomes students of all other communities, irrespective of caste, and their belief is fully respected. This purpose that you have for your college speaks to so many things, but primarily it speaks to women, the women who are marginalized and the minority. So the purpose of your college spoke to me also in so many different ways, but I can't, we have only an hour. I can't go into all the different ways. But what struck me was I also work with an organization here in the DC area called Empowered Women International. And what we do there is we support women immigrants, low income households, and women who've been trafficked. We help them learn a business skill that could in turn support them in the long run. So for me to be here today in the midst of your college and faculty members, it is indeed an honor that I cannot even begin to describe. It means a lot to me. And again, I'm saying thank you. So where do I start? Who am I? So from the face of it, I'm Shabnam Samuel, an author, an international motivational speaker who lives in Washington, D.C., in America. That is who the world knows me as. But how did I get here? My roots are from India, and I have a long-standing connection with the state of Bihar. Now, I know geography has changed, history has changed, maps have changed, but for the purpose of this story, of my story, we're just going to stick with the past and just think about Bihar as it was. So my mother was born in Patna. Yes, she was born in Patna. Can you all see my screen?
No, ma'am, not right now.
Can you enable it, Prachi?
1 minute, ma'am.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, ma'am. Kindly share your screen.
Okay, so let me try it again. Can you see it now?
No, ma'am, it's still not there.
You've enabled my screen sharing, correct?
Yes, ma'am. I've enabled your screen sharing.
Okay. Let's try it again. These are the challenges, right?
Yes.
Now?
Sadly, no.
No? You know what?
Should I do it at my end?
Yeah, go ahead and do it. Just show the first one.
Okay, 1 minute, ma'am. I'll just try to share it from my side. This one, the first Patna Junction?
Yes. So my mother was born in Patna in the early 1930s, as my grandfather was stationed in the Secretariat in Patna. Ranchi was their summer capital, and they split the time between the two. You can start, or you can remove it, Prachi.
Okay.
So on April 1st, just to go back to the narrative of the story, on April 1st, 1936, Bihar and Orissa became two separate provinces, as we all know. So my grandfather was part of the workforce that separated the provinces, which were Bihar, Bengal, and Orissa. Now, as much as he loved being in Patna and Ranchi, where 5 of his 7 kids were born, he, with a heavy heart, chose Orissa, since that was where he was from, but he never forgot Bihar. So then we fast forward to 1961. And yeah, I know I'm giving my age away, but it is what it is. So I was born April 1st of 1961. And if you see the date, April 1st was when Bihar and Orissa became two separate states, not the same year, but different years. So at home, when my birthday was celebrated, we always celebrated 3 birthdays on the 1st of April. My grandfather spoke fluent Bihari, and he would always give a speech in Oriya, Bihari, and English. Prachi, you can share my grandfather's picture if you want.
Yes, ma'am. 1 minute.
So that was my grandfather. And so he was the one who brought us this love of Bihar and Orissa and everything that came together with him. So this fondness for Bihar was always there. Then came 1967, and it was decided that I go away to boarding school. So a whole list of boarding schools were applied to. And needless to say, he chose a school, and you can show the third slide. That, yes. So he chose a school, and I don't know how many of you know, but this is Bishop Westcott School in Nankum.
Yes.
And so there I was back in Bihar, where my grandfather had started out, where my mother was born, and this was my boarding school. So as you can see, this connection is strong for me. So strong that almost 50 years later, I'm back here again. Maybe virtually, but I'm back in the old Bihar right now. And that, I don't know if y'all will even fathom what it means to me. So when Dr. Sahu reached out to me, and I knew she worked in Ranchi in this college, and said, we are doing this. Do you want to talk? And I was like, yes, of course. That meant so much to me. So now you see what my connection is. So Prachi, you can stop for the time being now.
Okay, ma'am.
So I'm back virtually, and here today, this is what we're going to talk about, this virtuality and this new norm. That is what we are trying to talk about here. The dreaded pandemic and its impact on the human society. We are here as diverse voices in different fields of life and have had different perspectives. But it seems with COVID-19, all our voices, the globe over, we are looking through the same tunnel. Our vision right now has the same kind of views, the same kind of scenes everywhere. At this point, I don't know how many of us even remember what date this changed all our lives, the exact date when all our lives were changed. Even if we remember the date, I don't even think we fathom the impact it would have on us. So many of us went into, when they said, okay, lockdown, we've got to stay away, do this, do that. So many of us went into it thinking, oh yes, 2 or 3 weeks, we can do this. It's no big deal, ho jayega, all of that we thought. And then time rolled on. 3 weeks of isolation became 6 weeks, and time kept rolling by. At this point, not many of us are aware of which week of quarantine we are in. If somebody asked me today, so what week are we in? I have no idea. I just know it's forever. So the self-imposed timeout, or whatever you want to call it, that we are in right now, we don't even know where it began. But when it first began, if you'll go back and think, it was, we saw, these days we connect over social media. We began to see that the posts on social media all over the world, they were about concern, how are you, keep well, keep your spirits up, all of that was going on. Then after a week or two, when we figured out, oh, okay, we're not going anywhere, let's have Zoom parties. Then the family had Zoom meetings once a week. Friends from high school, college, okay, let's get together, let's dress up and have a Zoom party. Some played tambola, some played cards. So all that happened. And we were doing that as a coping mechanism. Because all of us, whether in the US, in India, in Dubai, in Iraq, wherever we are, we instinctively find ways to cope with things that are thrown to us, which we never expected. And all this trying to reach out to others started happening because we needed to cope. Then we would cook. It was, oh, I cooked 10 things today, and pictures were on Facebook and Instagram. Oh, this happened and I did this. And And then what happened was the fatigue started setting in. We seem to be doing the same thing over and over again with no difference or change in our daily lives. Now, I know that for us, if I compare the two countries that I belong to, America and India, in a lot of ways, we in America had it a little better than you all in India, in the sense we were allowed a little more freedom. We could, and this is not big cities like New York or DC, there you had to follow certain norms. But if you lived in a state which we call the suburbs, or if you lived in the far away from a city, you could still go out and go for walks, go for your bike rides. But I know India had severe lockdowns. So there was a difference there. Now, what happened was, as the world started reeling with loss of lives, jobs, distance from our loved ones, suddenly you're noticing, like on social media or even at home, forget social media, even at home, our conversations with each other started getting a little edgier. We were a little more irritated, because suddenly we had all this time on our hands to reflect on who we are, our own personal space, and what or who we want in these spaces. Sometimes you just want to be by yourself. You don't want a husband or a kid or somebody else to come and say something to you. Then insecurity started creeping in. Comparisons compelled our thinking. Oh, my friend's husband was cooking this. Why can't you cook that? All that started happening. So our thinking was kind of getting warped. We were like, okay, she did this. Why can't I do this? Because we had nothing else to do. I mean, we were there at home all the time, 24/7. And then some of us, including me, we took to social media to proclaim, big inspirational messages. But somewhere between week 3 and week 1003 or whatever we are in, some of us just lost the plot. And when I say lost the plot means we just didn't know how to deal with things anymore. We just didn't know, okay, tomorrow it became a routine. I get up in the morning, I have my tea, I go start my work. I cook, I clean, I come back for lunch. It became a routine. There was no driving to work or taking a bus to work or anything like that that gave us the outside distraction. So then what happened, and I'm going to talk about, basically, most of us are Indians on this call. Some of us, we're spread out across the world, but mainly I'm going to focus on the US, since that's the global perspective I bring into this. Us as the Indian community here in the US, we are considered the model community. And that goes for all South Asian countries. So we are somehow held to a higher standard, whether it is at work, at home, or the public who's viewing us from the outside. We're the model immigrant community. We are strong, we forge ahead, we have great resolve, we have education, we have grit. And, and then, there's always this story, oh, they came into this country with only $2 in their pocket. Look at them now. Excuse me. So all that is a burden that we as Indians in the US carry on us. Recently, as about 2-3 weeks ago, we all work from home now. I got a message on our work chat. I want to be Indian. One of my friends at work sent me that message. I want to be Indian. I said, does she mean because the food that she loves? Then I mulled over this for a long time. You know what? Yes, we are the model community. Yes, we are all this and some more also. But we are all of this and some of it is less also. We are immigrants, yes, but we are certainly not models. We as Indians have gender-defined roles. For most of us, that is preset in our DNA. We as women are the pillars that keep the inside of the home running. and our men go out to keep the outside world running, so that we can have the inside of our homes fueled and running and food on the table and whatever it takes. Now, I'm not saying that this is typical of all families, but it is to a large extent. We have seen our mothers, our aunts, some mother-in-laws do it, and we just keep following that same pattern. It's like, preset. You hit play and we play the same role over and over again. Then what happened? Then, and that role we play in India, we play in the US. Don't think just because, I'm sitting here in the US, my life is any different from yours. It's not. Those patterns follow us wherever we go. Then COVID came, and so many of us, mainly women, we started questioning our roles and our responsibilities at home. Initially, when everybody was working, your spouse was at work, your kids were in college or in school, you were at work, you didn't have to worry about your day-to-day, hour-to-hour living. We went from just worrying about, okay, aaj dinner ke liye kya khaye? What's the hot dinner tonight? That went away. Now we were responsible and faced with thinking about what to make for breakfast, what to make for lunch. Breakfast used to be a protein bar or an apple or a banana, take it and you run. No, that all disappeared. No more taking a sandwich for lunch. You're at home, you're making sure you have a hot breakfast or a hot lunch. All that fell on us women. And when I say it fell on us, I'm sure there are exceptions, but I'm going with the general rule here. The kitchen sink was never empty. I've never seen my sink so full all the time. I eat, I clean, I go. But when you have to clean breakfast dishes, lunch dishes, dinner dishes, they just pile up. Then at home, suddenly you hear the voices become a little raised between partners or with your kid, or, resentments became a little deeper. You start thinking, okay, I can't make the breakfast. Why can't he make the breakfast? Or my kid is sleeping till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He needs to get up and clean, the bathroom or something. Many of us women work full time, and now it felt like work at home had doubled. You're working full time, plus you're working at your home. This, for us, to be honest, for us, when I say us, for people like us in the US, it didn't impact us so badly because we don't have household help here. So we're used to doing these things. Not at the large extent we're doing it now, but we're used to doing these things. I know in India, some of us are fortunate enough to have household help. I think that was the first crisis that hit my sisters and my sister-in-laws. Like, we don't have anybody to do the dishes. We don't have anybody to clean. I'm like, we were doing that all the time. So, we went joking back and forth like this. But it became too much for us here. It became, I'm not used to making upma for breakfast or anda omelette for breakfast. I'm not used to that except for a Saturday and Sunday. But now, because we are at home, we don't have to go driving to work. And so we've saved that 1 hour of driving or half an hour of driving. So, let's have something for breakfast. Some of the men that I know, these in the US, they are making triple the trips to the grocery store than normal. First, it was, once a week you go. But now, because you're eating constantly at home, your trips to the grocery store have doubled. And again, because our gender roles are so defined, most men took up this role of being the protector. Okay, wife, you stay at home, don't expose yourself to any virus outside, I'll go get the groceries. So they took the risk of contact with COVID, making sure the wives, the partners were safe at home. Then suddenly, after a few weeks, those trips, started becoming a headache for them. Every trip, if I would send somebody, if you send your husband out to get something, he would say, but I was just at the store. What do you need now? So that irritation started building in. And this was all because of this COVID-19 that we're experiencing together. However, the burden of the chores, as usual, falls on the women. Many women, like their spouses, we hold full-time jobs, but yet at the end of the day and during the day, it fell on these very women to make sure food was on the table, the cooking and cleaning and dusting was also done. Why? Why was it always on us? Because isn't that what we women are always intended to do? So this mindset that we have, this mindset really needs to change. And I think with this pandemic, if we look at one thing that it has brought, one or two things that are positive about it, is this area of change that we can implement in our own personal lives. This mindset that, I'm the husband, I won't do certain things. I'm the wife, I have to do certain things. I think we as women can implement that change. Okay, don't go on a strike. I'm not, telling any of you to go. Your husbands will all come to beat me up. Don't go on a strike. Just slowly start sharing, start saying, okay, I'm doing this today, you do that tomorrow. This pandemic has also shown us what an unbalanced society we live in. It has shown us that we as women, even in today's 21st or 22nd century, wherever we are headed to right now, we have to fulfill certain defined roles. The slogan from the pandemic was, we are all in this together. Anyone you talk to, anybody you had an interaction with, oh, we're all in this together. I don't think we're all in this together. The way some of us want it to be. I think there's always that imbalance that is there. One is higher, one is lower, but we need to have a level playing field. With all of that, all of this going on, then came the stress and the anxiety. It's stressful. I haven't personally seen my son in 4 months, though he lives 30 minutes away. So many of you have not seen your parents or I know somebody's spouse they haven't seen in 4 months. So all that is there. That brings stress, that brings anxiety. For women who didn't have to work, some of us stay at home and don't work. It was the stress of catering to people in their lives 7 days a week, full time. It meant no more downtime for you, no more alone time, nothing. Sadly, what this also brought about in some homes across the world, and this is just not uniquely a US perspective, I know it happens across the world, cases of domestic violence increased. The abuser and the abused are now trapped under one roof 24/7. There was no outlet. Voices were silent. Courage no longer existed. And studies show that almost 90% of the victims were women and children. So this is another one of the pandemic side effects. And this is heartbreaking when we think about it. It had a large effect. It has a large social aspect to it. What do we do with these women? What do we do with these children? Who do they go to? So that was one of the effects of the pandemic world over. Everything was shut down. Things were closed, and some people's lives were closing in. So today's hotly debated topic, and I follow India news and the news here. And without getting too political, these days, the hotly debated topic in the media and the world is teachers and their students. So many of us in the US want the schools to reopen, not with online teaching. They want the kids to go back in person to school. And why? Because they can't handle the child. They suddenly realize the importance of, a teacher's presence in their child's life. 8 hours a day, your child is in school. They realize the worth of a teacher. They realize the impact of a teacher. And they realize they can't do what teachers do. even though they might be the mother or the father or whatever. That influence is missing. And so there are some parents here who want the kids to go back. And then there are some who say, no, online teaching, because, there's too many risks out there. So there are always two sides to this proverbial coin that we have. With online teaching and the parents having to supervise and keep the kids studying, they finally got to see what teachers really did for their children every single day. The challenges of teaching, curriculum, mental and physical health, it all fell on these wonderful teachers more than the parents. Now, suddenly the parents were like, oh, what do I do now? How do I teach this? Or how do I guide my child to this? That is what, teacher XYZ did in school. I can't do this. So then the panic for the parents started setting in. What if we don't, step up to the plate? What if we can't give our child what our child needs? The education is going to suffer. Social skills are going to suffer. So that was something else that is going on here right now. We also have so this appreciation for teachers the world over, I think, has gone up. And I bow to all of you for for this wonderful job that you in Nirmala College and your faculty does, as part, in contributing to education of so many, changing so many lives. And then suddenly in the US, we are suddenly realizing, teachers are paid so much less than a general person outside in the world working in a private sector does. They deserve so much more than they put in. Again, that's a political issue that I won't go into, but these are the things that have been highlighted, especially in the US, that these are teachers, and look how we they work 9 months, they work 9 months a year with our children. They spend more time with them, and look at how much they make. Just in reference, the US teachers are the most what's the word? They don't get paid as much as their counterparts do in other parts of the world, and that's a sad reality. So right now, the US is in this debate, sending our kids back or not. And, this is going on. There are some states who refuse to, some states who want to. So at the end of it, we still don't know what's going to happen. So, what do we do with all this? Do we have any solution to this? We don't. Sadly, we don't. We read about the vaccines taking another year or so. We read about this study, that study, but there's no solution. There's no solution at all. I mean, I don't see, and I don't want to sound depressed or fatalistic, but I don't see a light at the end of this tunnel anytime soon. So what do we do? There's no solution, and we can't say, okay, if I do this, this is how it's going to be. We all, you, me, she, him, we all have things that we deal on different levels, both men and women. There's nobody here who's right or wrong. So the only thing that we can really do is take care of ourselves first. Taking care of finding ways to keep ourselves from not running on empty. And this is so important to women, because we as women, we are the givers. We are like, okay, I'll do this, I'll go cook something. Oh, I'll clean the house. Oh, I'll go get this. We just keep doing that. And we forget that we are humans also. And sometimes at the end of the day, you don't have any petrol left in you to run. And then what happens? Then your mind starts wandering. Then resentment creeps up. Then, you go have a fight with your sister, or you go have a fight with your husband. And these are all the effects of the pandemic, this closeness that we have been sharing for the past 4, 5, 6, 8 weeks, who knows how long, 4 months actually, I think, yeah. So then what do we do? Stress and anxiety, they manifest in our body in so many different ways. These days we're constantly wired we are constantly exhausted. So all we can do is take care of ourselves first. Only then can we be of service to others or support anybody else. And even as a mother, if you are not strong, or mentally sharp or physically alert, you can't do anything for your family. You can't do anything. Whatever you do, you will do with half a heart, and you as a person are lost in there somewhere. So we do have an obligation to ourselves first, especially in these trying situations, in these trying times that we have. Like the Buddha said, if your compassion does not include yourself, it is incomplete. And just think about those words. It is so, so, so true. There are days that I just collapse, in the sense, not physically, but I am so exhausted mentally and physically that I can't think of doing anything nice or saying anything nice to anybody else. And that shouldn't happen. We shouldn't run ourselves to that point where we're like, just leave me alone. We shouldn't. I mean, alone time is good, yes, but not at the expense of your mental health or your strength or whatever it is. So we as humans, as a collective society, we pay so much attention to what others think about us. Oh, wo kya kahega, log kya sochenge? All that is always running in our minds. And we as Indians, I think, that's my personal opinion, we carry that burden with us a lot. Whether it's in India, whether there are Indians in the US or the UK, it's always about what are people going to say, what are people going to think. So our self-esteem is always connected to this external validation. Okay, if somebody's some friend tells me, "Oh, Shabnam, wow, you're writing, you're working, you're cooking," oh, that makes me feel so good. But it shouldn't be like that. That appreciation for yourself needs to come from within you. You don't have to wait for somebody to tell you, how brilliant you are, or how, you should feel confident that what you're doing, what you're contributing is your 100%. So we as a society, as women, and my apologies to any men on this call, I'm not singling you all out, but it's just how it is. We collectively have to change this. Our first duty is to be aware of ourselves and accept ourselves, whoever we are. I mean, I have a lot of shortcomings. I know, I don't have much patience. I know, because I write, because I think, I like to be left alone a lot of times. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, but I've accepted that as me. That is me. That is who I am. And whether it's my spouse or my child, they finally realized it now. So acceptance is absolutely essential. Our first duty is to be aware of ourselves and accept ourselves. Only then can we go out and do, whatever we need to do. And when I say out, means even at home, you can reach out to somebody, be there for somebody, work on something. Only then can you do it if you are complete in yourself. Prachi, I'm going to ask you to share a few more slides coming up after this.
Okay, sure, ma'am.
So what do we do? I mean, there's no hard and fast rule that I said. We all have our different ways of coping. So there are a few things in this pandemic era that we can do to fortify ourselves. First, it's so important to breathe. Just breathe and give yourself, the permission to feel everything. If you're feeling irritated, feel irritated. If you don't want to talk to your husband for a few hours, don't talk to him. There's no rule that says you have to do this, you have to do that. So give yourself permission to feel your feelings. But at the same time, stay present, stay mindful, meditate. I can't even tell you how I used to be all over the place. But once I started my writer's retreat, and that became a part of our retreat, our 7-day retreat, that's when my practice started. And it balances you. And I'm sure so many of you over here must be doing that already. but take out a few minutes. The best time is in the morning because, you get up and you're ready to go meditate. Prachi, you can start the slides from the one from me.
Yes, ma'am.
Number 5, I think.
1. Yes. Is it visible now?
Go to slide 5. I can see the first slide.
Just 1 minute.
No worries. If you can't, we can skip it. That's no worry at all.
No, just 1 minute. I'll do it.
Okay. I can see myself. I don't know about anybody else.
Is this slide visible?
Yeah.
I can see slide number 5. Yeah.
Okay. So, like I said, meditate, do yoga, do whatever it takes. Always keep that inner child inside of you alive. I know with growing up, there are so many responsibilities. We come to a point where like a madam principal here, she runs an institution. Some of you are professors here. You'll teach, you'll go home, do this, do that. I'm sitting here, I work full time, I write. All of that is there. But always keep that inner child inside of you alive. Keep the little joys. Like yesterday, I was out and it started raining, and I was out walking, and I'm like, no, I'm going to just walk in the rain. That's how we did it as we were kids. And by the time I came back home, I was ready to cook dinner. When I left, I wasn't. So these little things help. Journal, write, do whatever it takes to put that emotion that you're going through on paper. Prachi, you can go on to the next slide. So this is where I sit and write. This is the back, we call it a deck. It's like a balcony terrace. So write, do whatever you get, whatever emotion you're going through. And you don't have to be a writer. You know how to write ABCD. You know write to Hindi alphabets, Oriya alphabets, whatever it is. Just write, because black and white always gives you a better perspective. It gives you a better depth. Be physical. You have to be active physically. The writing gets your mind going, but be physical. Go running, biking, or do whatever physical activity or exercise motivates you. So when you move physically, you're also moving mentally. Prachi, you can just keep going 1. So this is read. Reading is another thing that I would highly recommend. I know a lot of us, as we grow older, our reading habits change or we can't really focus. But try like 1 chapter a day, 2 chapters a day, just because of the situation we are in. Excuse me. Then I would say, pay attention to the foods you eat. You're always eating you have to eat mindfully, because what happens with this pandemic, what is going on is whatever we see, we eat. At least I do that. And it's like I'm eating my stress, I'm eating my feelings. That's something else that so many of us have gotten into with this pandemic that has hit all of us. I won't go in too much into Ayurveda, which I'm studying right now, but there is a reason Ayurveda exists. There is a reason for the philosophies. So pay attention to the foods you eat. Eat mindfully. According to Ayurveda, foods that we put in our body help us deal with stress and balancing our 3 vital energies of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So we cannot control what is going on the outside in the world. We have no control, but we can control what is going on in the inside of ourselves. And that is who we need to be. That is the only thing that is going to give us strength. And most importantly, be who you are. Just don't try and be somebody else, someone else wants you to be. Prachi, you can go to the slide of my books, and before, I just want, so you take nature walks, go on hikes. So what I wanted to say about this culture of silence, we as women especially Indian women, we are born into this culture of silence. It's been there for generations. But all I have to say is be who you are. I'm not trying to start a rebellion here, but don't try and be somebody else wants you to be. And I did that for a long, long time. I did that for almost 5 decades of my life. But 4 years ago, I put a stop to it. I wrote my book. Prachi, if you want to share the cover, you can. This is actually the US edition of my cover, and the other one is the India publication. So that's how I ended up writing my book. I wrote it from the perspective of a woman. I wrote it from a perspective of a girl, a girl child, and that is what we are here to overcome. That is what we as a collective society, that is what the pandemic has shown us, how imbalanced we are. So we need to work on that. We need to figure out, where we are in this world. Is it always the same role that we're going to play? No, we can change things. And I'm hoping some of us listening here or or watching it streaming somewhere will make that change, because it's no use we suffering or a woman's role being defined as, my father said it was this role, it has to be that role. No, that has to change. And this, I think that's the one good thing that there are so many bad things about the pandemic that we can go on and on about. But let's think about the good. Let's think about what we can take away from it. So I am kind of done with my presentation, but before we go into any questions and answers, I once again want to thank the management of Nirmala College and all those who put this brilliant forum together. And special thanks to Prachi Tiga for being such a great moderator. And once again, the principal, the vice principal, all of the management, and a special thanks to Dr. Rashmi Sahu for the special invite. If you guys have any questions, whatever you'll want to do, I'm here.
Thank you, ma'am, for that wonderful session for addressing domestic violence, gender roles. There are some questions from the participants, and I'd be happy to moderate it for you. Preeti Kanodia asks, are we running away from family responsibilities as performed by our parents for us? Why is a grudge seeping in the relationships during this COVID-19 situation?
I don't think we are running away from responsibilities, but in a large scale, I do see resentment creeping in, because, like I said, suddenly we realized we women are doing more. I talked to family, and they were like, I can't do this anymore. He just works and watches TV. So, or somebody does this. It's not running away. It's trying to share the burden, trying to share the load, trying to be equal partners in the true sense of the word.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, there is another question by a participant, Shubham Raj. He was talking about depression cases and how there is an increasing number of cases coming in youngsters and other people who are facing this lockdown. So, what will be your suggestions and advice to overcome that?
Well, okay. So first of all, I cannot give any medical advice because I'm not,
Yes, ma'am.
not a therapist, not a doctor. But the last couple of things that I said, work on yourself. Go out, be out in the open, write, journal, talk to somebody who's close to you. Honestly, for me, and this is for me, I do a lot of my own therapy by writing. So do all of that. Do go back to your childhood and think about what are the fun things that you like to do. Do those again.
Yes, ma'am.
And talk
Ma'am,
to
one
somebody.
more.
That is most important. Sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Ma'am, one more. I think this should be the last question for the session. This is by Nazim Imam. He wants to know what are the changes that you have observed with respect to social aspect in comparison to India and USA. Like you were saying that we're following both countries. So what are your perspectives as to how each country is dealing with the pandemic situation?
Unfortunately, the numbers are bad both in the US and India. But in my perspective, I think the Indians are dealing with it better. They're following more rules, even though some numbers don't show that. Because for us in the US, the pandemic has unfortunately become political. If you wear a mask, you are on this side. If you don't wear a mask, you are on that side. So I think India is doing a much better job than we are.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. This brings us to a close of the session, and I congratulate you for your wonderful presentation. I would now like to request Dr. Janet Andrew Shah to propose the vote of thanks. Janet, ma'am, do we have you here? Yes.
Is she muted?
Yeah, I've asked her to unmute. Yes, Janet. Yes.
Thank you, Shabnam. That was a very enlightening, very engrossing session that we just had with you. I have been listening to you very avidly, and I think as a woman, I think all the other women participants also have been listening because, you have been dealing with the pandemic, which is actually, the pandemic has not differentiated between the third world countries and the developed countries, but then the issues that are there are the worldwide over, and you have very nicely dealt with how to deal with them. And I especially like the fact that, I think all of us, that you have referred to women as the pillars who are actually, going to improve on and work on the socio-economic fabric. They are the ones who've been facing the depression, the frustration, the kitchen, the husband. And it was a lovely, gentle reminder that you gave to the men, that wake-up call, that there should be some gender reversal, that they should also be taking over. Thank you so much for that. In fact, the word that you used in the mindfulness, and you gave us those solutions, yoga and walking and journals. I think this, as a coping mechanism, this we should all be looking into, all of us. We look forward to some more sessions like from people like you, people who are based in India, who know India, and then who are actually, based abroad. So then we do get another global viewpoint. You, ma'am, have given us actually a bird's eye view, a very vista that is actually global. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
so
you,
much.
Janet ma'am, and thank you, sister, for your constant support. She has been a beacon of light in all our endeavors. Thank you for guiding us and giving us this platform for this conference. Thank you for all the thank you to all the participants for joining us on Zoom as well as on live stream on YouTube. Thank you once again. Before we wind up this session for the day, there are a few announcements that I would like to make. We are hoping to see you all tomorrow for the next session at 11 a.m. The links for the next session will be shared by tonight, so please stay tuned and thank you for joining us. The feedback forms have been shared with all of you in the Zoom chat box and in the YouTube stream chat box as well. The links will close in an hour, so kindly do the needful. Thank you once again. With your permission, sister, I would like to end the session. Can I go ahead, sister?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Shabnam ma'am. Thank you, Jat ma'am. Thank you, sister. Thank you, everyone.